All right, this is a review for the quarterfinal. This is part 3, test 3, I guess you'd call it. It's about stretching and shrinking. I'd like you to tell me what kind of a stretch or a shrink the 2 and the 3 represent. And I'd like you to write them like, vertical stretch factor 7, horizontal stretch factor 1/3, or whatever it is. By this test, you had not only, or you had already learned moving, you'd already learned reflecting, and then we were just adding in stretching at this point. And so the test you had on this one had all 3 kinds of things. Had some moving, some reflecting, and some stretching. All right. Here's what you should have said. This one right here, and it doesn't, I'm not talking order right now, I'm just like doing the 2. The 2 means a vertical stretch factor 2, and that means it gets twice as tall. Raise your hand if you had that one on your list. Okay, good. Then the other one is not a stretch. A lot of people fall into that, oops, and there goes the point. It is a shrink. It is a horizontal, remember, vertical on the outside, but horizontal on the inside. Hi-vo. And it's a horizontal shrink factor, and you can't say 3, factor 1/3, because you use fractions when you shrink stuff. Okay, any questions about that? All right. Well, that's stretching and shrinking. Okay, so what more could there be? Well, the hard ones on these would have a squiggly shape, and you got to stretch or shrink it. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's say we have a function, and if I don't know what the function is, then what do I call it? F of x. And if I say, if I stretch this puppy and I make it twice as tall, then I know it's going to look kind of like this. The red one is twice as tall. Would you please write that for me with f of x notation? The red function would be what? I'm going to actually make a little tweak to it and then see if you can do both at once. All right, so I'm going to now take the red function and move it. And it's off just a smidge here, so I'm going to try to straighten this out. All right, now tell me what it is in function notation. All I did is move it again a little bit. All right, you're right. One person's got it right. 2 people have showed me. 3, 4, 5 right, 6 right, 7 right, 8 right, 9 right, 10 right, 11 right, 12 right, 13 right, 14 right, except you need a y equals 15 right, 16 right, and 17 right, 18 right, you forgot the F, close, 19 right, all right, 20 right, 21 right, 22 right, okay, it's getting close, 23 people, yep, that's y equals, all right, if you wrote 2f of x, you had a good start because it's twice as tall, and then you had to move it to the right one. That needs to stay on the inside, -1. All right. Now, you should always double check yourself based on, because if I'm checking them around the room, it's really hard because I sometimes will see one and I think I'm seeing a 2 and it's really a 1/2. You know what I mean? And that would be wrong, obviously. So double check and make sure you actually had it right. All right, so that's a stretch with a move. All right, instead of that, let's go back to where my original shape was, right there. And I want to tell you what to do to it, and I want you to graph it. So would you please do an insert picture? Remember how we took a picture of a perfect graph? I made you do that a while ago. Insert your graph right now. So insert picture. Have a graph on your screen. And I want you to make the parent function on your graph to start with. Then I want you to do this to it. actually plus 2. 2x, and then a plus 2 on the outside. All right, so the parent one's the black one. I'd like you also, once you're done with it, make your answer green. Make it dark green. I'm going to pause for a second while you try that. All right, so a lot of people did have differences or discrepancies between theirs, and that means that one of them was probably wrong. So let's say, how would I do this? How would the math teacher do it? I would personally do it by points. I would take each point that's important, and I also include the x and y intercepts on this as I'm deciding what's important. Okay, and then I would take each point and do the stuff to it. This means what? Twice as wide? Half as wide. So each point needs to get half as wide. And if you ask yourself, how wide is that point? It is 0 wide. Okay, it hasn't moved at all from the origin, width-wise. It moved up. You know, like if it starts right there, it moved up, but it never went wide at all. So there was 0 width. So that point doesn't move. And this point gets half as wide. This point gets half as wide. This point here gets half as wide, so it ends up right there. This gets half as wide. Half of 3 is 1.5, so it's right there. And now I just have to connect my dots. Do. Okay. Then what do I do? After I'm done with the stretch, do the move. And the move goes up 2. And so I grab this and move it up 2. 1, 2. 2. 2. 2. There we go. Now double check, is that where you had it? All right, that's the hardest thing about stretching and shrinking is we take a strange shape and they ask you to do a stretch and a move, or a shrink and a move. Okay, in this case it was a shrink. It was a horizontal shrink and a move. All right, now I'd like to just spend a minute talking about the most common mistakes I marked on the last test, part 4, which was quadratics. All right, so I would say you guys as a group did very well on that test. The average score was in the neighborhood of like a B+, A- even, and some people struggled with it more. I think because we practiced the top 20 so much, it made a big difference. Okay, so let's talk about the most common mistakes that people made. One of them was having a hard time between which form is which. So I'm going to give you some description on the 3 forms. Here's a, is that factored? Is that vertex or is that general? Would you please write it down on your iPad? And you can use the first letter, F, G, or V. Turn and show the person I had you grouped with. I am sorry, some of you that involves a short walk or a long distance viewing. All right. And this one was factored form. That was one of the most common things I marked wrong is people just didn't have the forms down, like which one's which. If it's got parentheses, it's usually parentheses plural, like 2 sets of parentheses. Then it's usually that form. Which other form has parentheses but is not factored form? Vertex form, and it looks like this. Okay, and if that's the vertex, would you please write down what the vertex is? If this is vertex form, what is the vertex? And this one showed to me, and I'll tell you right or wrong. Yes, 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 yes. Everybody's got it right. Yes, I hope nobody gets it wrong at this point. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay, good. And the common mistake would be 3, 1, and none of you made it. It's negative 3, 1. All right, good. Now, I'd like you to just take a moment and convert this from vertex form to general form. Generally, you just multiply them out. Go ahead and do that. I get how people can make mistakes multiplying this puppy out because some people make that dumb mistake of going, oh, it's just x squared and 3 squared. It is not. We've practiced that, so pretty much nobody made that mistake, which was awesome. X plus 3, x plus 3 plus 1, and then you multiply it all the way out, and then you put the 1 with it. And would you please show the person I hooked you up with today and see if you have the same? Make it so they can actually see it. If anything's wrong, it's usually the last number. Good question. It depends on if I asked you for the equation. So yes, I probably did, and therefore you probably should. Y equals is a good idea. X squared plus, and then I multiply that out as 6x, and then plus 9 plus another 1 makes plus 10. All right. Next, will this one turn into factored form? A lot of people think that this one's factored form. Do you get it's not factored? Because of that plus 1. Factors means it's this times this. You can't have a plus 1. If this would not be factored form. This can be, or at least you can try, to factor it. Would you give it a try? See if it will factor. And if it won't, you better have checked that plus has to be, yeah, they all have to be pluses because there's a plus here and a plus there. Then there's only 2 options, 2 and 5 and 5 and 2. Actually, that's, well, you know what? If I reverse them, it's kind of irrelevant. And then 10 and 1. And if I try first outside, inside, last on each of those and it doesn't work, then it doesn't factor. And what's it called then? If it doesn't factor. It starts with a P. Prime. It's called prime if it won't factor. Just like 7's prime, because it won't factor. Except in the 7 times 1, which doesn't count for factoring. Okay, so let's actually do a factoring one. All right, try factoring that one. The question might say, put this into factored form. Pause for a second while you give that a try. Okay, so I'm hoping you factored the 2 out first. How many of you noticed there's a 2 in everything? All right, because if you didn't, then you didn't factor it all the way. You might have started factoring it, but 2x squared minus 5x minus 3. Okay, that's getting just the 2 out of everything. When I say get it out, I mean divide everything by 2. That's what you're really doing when you're factoring. Dividing everything by 2 and putting the 2 in front. Okay, now we've got to factor it again, like this. If you haven't already got that far, finish it up quick, and in a second I'm going to have you show somebody. All right. For those of you that are depressed because you didn't have homework done today, one good piece of news is that at the end of the quarter, I usually throw out one assignment, and it's your lowest assignment. So if you have a 0 and you have all like good scores and all the other ones, then don't worry about it. But if you had some other low scores and this one's a 0, then maybe you want to fix this one, because if you tell me, oh, I didn't have it done today, then you only have till this Thursday, which would be tomorrow, to show me your late work. Okay? So if you want to turn in this assignment tomorrow, just get it done, turn it in. But if it's your only bad one, it's going to get thrown out anyway. Okay? All right. I do want to add assignment, and this one was called 4. All right, show the person that I paired you with today. See if you got the same factored form as they did. And if you're different, try to figure out what might be wrong. Okay, here's what I hope you did. 2x and x. And then what two numbers multiply to 3? Well, it's got to be a 1 and a 3, no doubt. So I'm going to make one of them in green and one of them in black. Oh, what? Bah. Try that again. I'll make this one in blue, actually. And then one of them has to be positive and one of them has to be negative. All right, so now I just do the rearranging deal until I get it right. I can move this to here if I want to, and that to there if I want to, and just play around until I get it right. So is it right the way I have it right now? Outside, inside, they do not make negative 5x. Because this is positive 3, that's negative 2, so that didn't work. How about if I move this to here? Now outside and inside makes negative 6 and positive 1. Yay, it's negative 5. So it is 2x plus 1 and x minus 3. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, good. So that's factored form. What's it good for? Factored form is good for getting the roots, the zeros, the x-intercepts. And I had a painfully large number of people give the answers to this, and they would say, oh, it's x equals 3 and x equals negative 1. Do you get what they're doing? I think in their head, they're thinking, oh, you just do the opposite of this and the opposite of that. Do you get what they're thinking? It's not right, but I think that's what they're thinking. 3 is one of the answers, but negative 1 is not one of the answers. What I want you to do on problems like this is to set up a little equation. Now, granted, these are so easy that it seems like setting up an equation is a huge waste of time. And I hear you. If it's just an x minus 3, then it is kind of a waste of time. It's just x equals 3. But on this kind, 2x plus 1 equals 0, I literally had more mistakes on this problem than any other problem on the test. And I warned people about this. Really, really warned you that you don't want to just pick the answer out in your head on this. You want to solve it by hand. Would you please solve that by hand and get me the final right answer for the root on that side? I know the other root's 3, but what's the first root? Don't just try to do them in your head. You're running like a 1 in 3 chance you're going to screw up like a lot of people did on the test. Most missed problem on the test. And it's so easy. Yes, yes, turn it my way. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, 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 yes. You forgot the negative. Yes, 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 yes. You forgot the x equals. Yes, you forgot the x equals. Is that a negative? I can't see the negative. Yes, okay, good. And yes, and nope. I think you're doing the right side. I just wanted the left side. The left side. Okay, good. Just got to zoom in on that one. All right, yes, 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 yes. Okay, good. So it was, when I subtract 1 from both sides, I have 2x equals negative 1, and then I have x equals negative 1/2. All right, I only had 2 people wrong to get it wrong in the class. Mostly it's forget the negative. Sometimes it's forget the x equals. All right, so there's my little speech on you should write these out. You should not try to do them in your head quicker. You're going to go, oh, opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. Opposite of negative 1 is, your positive 1 is negative 1. And the answer is not negative 1. The answer actually is negative 1/2 because you're supposed to set this equal to 0 like that. Okay, now Quadratics had one other tough topic, and I'm going to pause for a second to make sure I don't forget what it was. Okay, it was this kind. And then they'd say, find the vertex. Well, first step on something like this, in my opinion, is you make a quick sketch of it. Picture's worth 1,000 words. So make a quick sketch, please. You should know what the roots are right away. Boom, I know them. And then you got to figure out, where does that axis of symmetry lie? And that will then tell you where the vertex is, if you know how to use that axis of symmetry. In a second, I'll see if you and your partner both know the correct axis of symmetry, and therefore the correct vertex. So find your axis of symmetry. If you didn't get x equals a negative number, then you screwed something up. Then figure out this vertex, and I want you to write the vertex like a point, like, 2 comma, or negative 2 comma 9, or whatever it is. Now, some of you might be saying, well, this is the one thing I really don't know, but I know everything else. That's not good enough. There might be 2 questions on the test like this, and all of a sudden that's worth 10% of your grade. And that could drop you an entire grade. Okay. If you haven't already figured this out, this is 3, and this is negative 7. Those are the roots. And you're trying to find the axis of symmetry that runs between them, and then, therefore, where the vertex is. Okay, turn and show your partner. If you haven't got it yet, give them a second. So here we go. Hopefully you've already checked with the person near you, and how many of you had the same answer as them for the vertex? All right, only like 5 people. All right, so this is not easy, right? Here's where the axis of symmetry goes, right down the middle here. I don't know exactly where that is. How do I figure out where that is? Yes, sir. You're adding them and dividing by 2. That's called averaging. Excellent. And you are going to add them, and that makes negative 4. Negative 7 plus 3 equals negative 4. And then you divide it by 2, the average, and you get negative 2. That's what the axis of symmetry is, negative 2. Then, if you take that negative 2 and you put it where? In the equation. All you got to do is stick a negative 2 in the equation. So negative 2 goes here, negative 2 goes there. And then you solve that, and you have got your vertex. I know it's at negative 2 comma something, and I just am figuring out what the something is to put there. Everybody please finish the deal and write down what the answer is. And then compare it with the person that I paired you with. Yes?
So would you always put it in factor form?
You can put it in any form you want. If you have the equation in any form, you can take the x of the vertex and stick it in and process it and get the y. Thanks for asking. Okay, compare with that other person. See if you agree. A lot of people forget to times it by 3 in the front. It was negative 5 times positive 5, which makes negative 25, times 3 is negative 75. All right, have a good day. Yes.